My goal this morning is to provide a clear and practical update on where we are with the Southern Beltway, specifically State Road 534, and how this project fits into the broader regional transportation picture for Central Florida. As you know, the Southern Beltway is a critical piece of infrastructure for Southeast Orange and Northern Osceola counties. It's about more than just adding roadway miles. It's about supporting growth, improving mobility, and making sure our expressway system keeps pace with the region we serve. Today, I'd like to focus on three things. First, I'll briefly walk through how the Southern Beltway came to be, why this corridor was envisioned, and the regional needs that drove it. Second, I'll talk about the plan for delivering the project, how we've structured the work, the sequencing, and the approach we're taking to move forward responsibly. And third, I'll give you a status update of where we are today, what has been accomplished, what's underway, and what's coming next. By the end of the presentation, my intent is that you'll have a clear understanding of both the progress we have made and the path ahead as we continue delivering this important regional corridor. To understand where we're going with the Southern Beltway, it's helped to briefly understand how we got here. This corridor didn't come from a single decision or a single agency. It's the result of more than a decade of coordinated local, regional, and state planning efforts. It really begins in 2005 when Osceola County's comprehensive plan recognized the need to manage rapid growth by directing development, protecting rural areas, and planning transportation infrastructure ahead of demand. That led to the creation of the Osceola County Expressway Authority in 2010 and the development of the OCX 2040 plan, which envisioned a series of expressways connecting emerging communities within the county's urban growth boundary. At the state level, Governor Scott's East Central Florida Corridor Task Force reinforced the same need, calling for strategic east-west and north-south corridors to support long-term economic growth for the region. When the legislature created CFX in 2014, it directed us to incorporate those unbuilt OCX projects into our system. By 2016, CFX's first master plan formally included the vision for a regional Southern Beltway. So what this timeline really shows is alignment. Local plans, regional vision, and state direction all converging around the same conclusion. A Southern Beltway is essential to support the growth we're seeing today and anticipate for tomorrow. To put the Southern Beltway in the right context, this really starts with a broader regional conversation about growth. Back in 2007, the How Shall We Grow initiative brought together thousands of residents, regional elected officials, public agencies, economic and planning organizations, and community stakeholders from across Central Florida. The takeaway was clear: growth was coming, and we needed to be intentional about where it goes and how we support it with infrastructure. Out of that shared vision came a series of actions: creation of the Osceola County Expressway Authority, the East Central Florida Corridor Task Force, and ultimately CFX. Each of these built on the same underlying idea: connect emerging economic and residential areas with a thoughtful regional transportation network. What I want to emphasize here is the continuity. The Southern Beltway didn't appear overnight. It is a direct outcome of years of consistent regional planning, collaboration, and alignment around how the region grows responsibly. At this point, it helps to ground the conversation geographically. What you're looking at here is the Southern Beltway as it was originally envisioned by the Osceola County Expressway Authority. The intent was straightforward: create a beltway system that better integrates Osceola County with the broader Orlando metropolitan area, Polk County, Brevard County, and the Orlando International Airport. The Southern Beltway was always intended to function as a regional connector, not just a local roadway. It set the framework for how growth in Osceola County could be supported while tying into the larger Central Florida transportation network. At the state level, the same conversation about growth and mobility was reinforced through the East Central Florida Corridor Task Force. The task force was created to look beyond individual projects and evaluate how future transportation corridors should support both existing communities and emerging economic centers across Brevard, Orange, and Osceola counties. In its 2014 final report, the task force didn't just focus on improving what we already had, it identified where new east-west and north-south corridors would be needed to keep pace with long-term growth. What you're seeing on this slide are the recommended study areas for those future corridors, many of which intentionally connect to the proposed regional Southern Beltway. Through the work of the task force, there was a clear recognition that the regional Beltway would serve as a backbone, linking new corridors, supporting economic development, and creating a more resilient transportation network for Central Florida. In 2016, CFX approved its first long-range plan, identified as the 2040 Master Plan. This plan served as the agency's visionary blueprint for system improvements and new expressway projects to meet Central Florida's long-term mobility needs. Importantly, the plan didn't start from scratch. It intentionally carried forward the regional Southern Beltway vision that had already been developed through OCX 2040 plan and the East Central Florida Corridor Task Force. What that means in practical terms is the Southern Beltway was now part of CFX's official system vision. As you know, Osceola County has been one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. This slide helps to show why the Southern Beltway conversation started when it did. Using over 40 years of time-lapse imagery, you can see how development has expanded in this area since the mid-1980s. Early growth was limited to places like Buenaventura Lakes and St. Cloud. Over time, that growth pushed north and east, particularly with the opening of State Road 417 and planned and approved residential expansion. Since the early 2000s, growth around East Lake Tahoe has accelerated significantly along Narcoossee Road, Simpson Road, Boggy Creek Road, and US 192. Major master plan communities like Lake Nona, Laureate Park, and Eagle Creek soon followed. What this shows is a simple reality. Growth has moved faster than the transportation network. Planning and delivering infrastructure takes time, and the Southern Beltway is a response to that long-term growth trend, not a reaction to a single development or moment in time. This video shows the reality on the ground today. Narcoossee Road is a good example of what happens when growth outpaces infrastructure. This corridor was widened from 2 lanes to 6 lanes back in 2012, and despite that investment, congestion today regularly stretches more than 2 miles south of State Road 417. The challenge is that Narcoossee Road is now constrained. Additional widening would likely come with significant impacts to adjacent neighborhoods, businesses, and environmental resources. This is exactly where State Road 534 plays a role. Rather than continuing to push more traffic onto already maxed out arterial roads, the Southern Beltway provides a limited access alternative that takes pressure off corridors like Narcoossee and improves overall system reliability. This project isn't about replacing local roads. It's about giving the regional system another outlet so local roads can function the way they were intended. This slide shows how our local and regional partners are already investing to keep up with growth in the area. One example is the Sunbridge Parkway extension. Osceola County has completed the PD&E study between Aerospace Parkway and Nova Road, and a second PD&E study is underway from Nova Road down to US 192. These projects are important because they improve local circulation and access as development continues to come forward. They're part of a broader set of county and local roadway improvements happening throughout the area. But local roads alone can't carry the full burden of regional growth. To truly support what's coming, those investments need to be paired with limited access corridors. That's where the Southern Beltway comes in. It provides the regional backbone that allows local roads to function rather than becoming long-term congestion plans. The last decade has seen steady progress to deliver the Southern Beltway. OCX opened the original Poinciana Parkway in 2016, and shortly after, the legislature transferred all OCX assets and projects to CFX. Knowing that transition was coming, we didn't pause. CFX moved ahead with concept feasibility and mobility studies for all 4 Southern Beltway corridors. By the end of 2018, those studies were complete, and we advanced the strongest projects into the PD&E phase. From there, we have methodically progressed each segment, completing PD&E studies, beginning final design, and widening Poinciana Parkway for safety and consistency with CFX standards. As we closed out 2025, we completed the Southern Connector PD&E, continued design on State Road 534 and 538, and moved forward with the final PD&E for the Northeast Connector Expressway. This has been a disciplined, step-by-step delivery process, and today we're no longer talking about concepts. We're actively designing and positioning these projects for construction. For the past 9 years, the Southern Beltway is consistently included in CFX's 5-year work plan. That's important because it shows this isn't a new idea or a last-minute addition. This has been a planned program and investment. Today, these projects make up a significant portion of CFX's current 5-year work plan, reflecting both their scale and regional importance. Starting in the north and moving clockwise, the plan includes construction of State Road 534 between State Road 417 and Nova Road, completing PD&E studies for both Northeast and Southport Connector Expressways, and construction of State Road 538 between Ronald Reagan Parkway and County Road 532. This slide shows the original State Road 534 alignment approved by Osceola County Expressway Authority in 2017. That alignment crosses diagonally through the center of Split Oak Forest, affecting land in both Orange and Osceola counties. It was with this proposed alignment where the term splitting Split Oak was born. As CFX assumed responsibility and advanced this corridor, stakeholders were clear: reduce impacts to Split Oak as much as possible. Through the concept feasibility and mobility study and the PD&E reevaluation, our team was challenged to rethink how this corridor could function while minimizing environmental impacts compared to the original OCX route. This graphic sets a baseline. The next slides will show how the State Road 534 alignment evolved, what changed, and how those changes reflect a more balanced approach between transportation needs and conservation priorities. In late 2019, CFX completed the State Road 534 PD&E reevaluation, and the board approved the preferred alternative shown here. The key outcome was significant impact reduction by minimizing the corridor's footprint within Split Oak Forest to a 60-acre easement at the forest's southern edge. We also shifted the State Road 417 interchange slightly northeast to improve regional connectivity and access to the Orlando International Airport. This slide illustrates how the context around Split Oak Forest has changed over time. As the State Road 534 alignment was refined to minimize impacts to the forest, development pressure was increasing around it, particularly to the west and to the south. At the same time, Osceola County's Northeast District Master Plan, originally approved in 2010, began moving from paper to reality. What's now known as Sunbridge was already entitled for a significant amount of residential, commercial, and mixed-use development. What's important to note is that while only a small portion of that development has been built to date, the entitlement is there and growth will come. That future growth is a key reason why planning State Route 534 now is critical. This slide helps put the Split Oak discussion into perspective. At State Route 534 is a 14-mile project, and the conversation has understandably focused on roughly 1.3 miles within the forest. To achieve the minimized alignment, CFX limited the footprint to a linear easement and paired that with a much larger conservation outcome. We led the effort to assemble 1,550 acres of donated conservation land, including property that had previously been entitled for development. When you combine the donated lands with existing split oak forest, Moss Park, and Isle of Pine Preserve conservation lands, you end up with more than 5,100 contiguous acres of protected lands. This rendering shows how State Road 534 fits in today's built environment. From west to east, you can see the roadway crossing the orange Osceola County line, entering Split Oak Forest just east of existing neighborhoods, and continuing through the forest with 3 bridged crossings to support wildlife movement and trail connectivity. The alignment then exits the forest near Del Webb Sunbridge, bridges over and provides a local interchange with the Sunbridge connector, bridges over Searles Drive, and continues south towards Nova Road. What's important here is context. The corridor is being designed around existing communities and entitled development, not through undeveloped space. This rendering depicts a closer look at the bridging within Split Oak Forest. The proposed crossings were presented to and approved by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission staff as a condition for release of their conservation easements. At the top of the graphic, you can see the proximity of the Bridgewalk development to the west. Up to this point, I've talked about the why, the growth, the planning, and the environmental balance. Now I want to shift to the how. Delivering the regional Southern Beltway means advancing more than 55 miles of limited access expressway across 4 distinct corridors. That doesn't happen all at once. It takes deliberate sequencing, coordination, and discipline. What I will do next is walk you through where each of these projects stands today, where we stand with design, what's moving towards construction, and where we're still working through planning and planning studies and funding. This information will provide you with a clear picture of progress across the entire system. State Road 534 is a 14-mile limited access expressway connecting State Road 417 near Orlando International Airport to Nova Road. It's being delivered in 3 phases, which allows us to manage cost, risk, and construction impacts while keeping momentum. A key part of this project is balance. Along with the roadway, we've secured 1,550 acres of donated land into conservation, invested $24 million in restoration and long-term maintenance of that land, funded Split Oak Forest enhancements, and incorporated 3 wildlife crossings and trail connections. Today, right-of-way acquisition and design are underway for phases 1 and 2. We anticipate starting construction on the State Road 417 interchange in early 2027. Phase 3 design procurement is moving forward, and a full corridor construction is expected to be complete in 2032. State Road 534 is no longer conceptual. It's actively being designed, permitted, and positioned for construction as a critical piece of the regional Southern Beltway. We are currently conducting a PD&E study of the Northeast Connector Expressway to evaluate a 15 to 20 mile connection between Florida's Turnpike and State Road 534. Several corridors were initially considered, and based on stakeholder and community input, we've narrowed that down to 3 corridor options. Public engagement is a key part of this effort. A public workshop is planned for this year, and that feedback will help inform the final recommendation. The PD&E study is expected to wrap up in mid-2027. Until then, this work is about listening, refining options, and making sure any future corridor balances mobility, community impacts, and environmental considerations before moving forward. The Southport Connector is the 15-mile portion of State Road 538 connecting Poinciana Parkway to Florida's Turnpike. The board approved the PD&E study and preferred alternative in December of last year, which was an important milestone for this corridor. The project is well defined, but it does face a financial viability shortfall. Because of that, staff is actively looking at phasing options and potential funding partners to make delivery achievable. The final slide focuses on extending Poinciana Parkway and improving County Road 532. We are delivering a 3.1-mile extension of Poinciana Parkway from Ronald Reagan to County Road 532, providing a direct connection into FDOT's project that ties in State Road 538 to I-4 at State Road 429. That coordination is intentional. This segment ties local, regional, and state investments into one contiguous system. The project is being built in two segments with a new interchange at US 1792 and a widened County Road 532 that doubles capacity and adds multimodal facilities. Those improvements are critical for supporting growth in Poinciana while improving safety and local access. County Road 532 construction is expected to begin any month now, with the Poinciana Parkway extension followed in 2027. This project is a good example of how the Southern Beltway isn't just one roadway, but a coordinated program that works with our partners to deliver real mobility improvements. To close, the Southern Beltway reflects more than 20 years of planning that started with Osceola County's 2005 comprehensive plan and has steadily moved forward through regional and state collaboration. Over the last decade, CFX staff and our partners have taken that long-standing vision and turned it into real deliverable projects. I'm proud of the progress that we've made and the balance that we've achieved between mobility, growth, and conservation. To put this into perspective, when CFX began this work in 2016, the agency was approximately 53 years old, and our system totaled 109 miles. The regional Southern Beltway alone represents more than 55 miles of new expressway, and we are still less than a decade into delivery. This is a significant expansion of our system and a major investment in Central Florida's future. Thank you for your time this morning.